to Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shawna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello and welcome, friends. I'm Shawna Corden, and I'm glad to have you here on the Playbook for Performance podcast. Our mission is to make work fun again by building better leaders. Last week, we talked about how a lack of awareness could kill your connection. What means did you put in place to bolster your sense of awareness? If you have additional tools you'd like to suggest, please email us. We can add them to the epilogue by dropping a note to podcast@shawnacorden.com. Now on to today. Today, I want to talk about the new etiquette. Today's Wall Street Journal had a great article on Back to the Office, referring to it as etiquette. Now, etiquette has come a long way since the Emily Post days of knowing which fork to use. In my past brown bags, I've invited etiquette experts like Mary McCormick to share etiquette tips from email to meetings. So what is etiquette? To boil it down, it's really about creating a safe space by illustrating the norms that people can expect. What causes people to be uncomfortable? Not knowing. Doing some research and knowing what to expect helps people feel more confident and safe. Think about the first time you were around someone with a challenge or a disability. You probably wondered, should I offer to help, or would that be offensive? Or think about the first time you went to a formal event. Do you wear the gloves or no? Now, I'm pretty familiar with this because I am a hearing child of deaf adults. So sign language is my first language, and I know all of the ways that you should behave around a deaf person. You know, often you have to tap them on the shoulder, or you might flick on and off a light switch to get their attention because yelling won't do anything for you. And I'm always happy to share that etiquette of how to be around deaf people and how to treat them. For example, if you were talking to someone who was deaf and they had an interpreter, you would still want to look at the deaf person, even though they're watching the interpreter, because it shows a sign of respect. You don't want the deaf person to be confused by you speaking to the interpreter. And we really need a book of this, all the ways to behave around people who have challenges. Back to our topic today, the etiquette. We all knew what was expected before in the office. Handshakes, introductions, and depending on your culture, it might include a hug, 2 kisses, even 3 kisses. Even how closely you stand next to one another while conversing is driven by the culture and the etiquette of that culture. Well, COVID has certainly muddied the waters. So how are you creating a safe space in your workplace with the new COVID climate? Well, here are some suggestions. Number 1, create a straw dog of expectations. For those of you unfamiliar with this term, it's to bring a framework of ideas to help generate discussion. A blank slate makes it difficult to come up with ideas, but it's much easier to tear apart or build on existing ideas by having this framework in place. Your straw dog may include the following, and you're more than welcome to copy this. Number 1, wear your mask moving between open areas. 2, remove your mask when you're seated at your desk or your cube. Wear a mask in a closed room or keep windows and doors open. Do a temperature check and sign in each morning. One of my clients has this iPad-looking device that takes my picture, reads my temperature before I enter the building. This not only keeps a timestamp of everyone who has been present that day, but also aids in exposure tracing if necessary. Amp up the ventilation and air cleaning. Don't expect handshakes. If offered or desired, you may offer, but don't be offended if the other party declines. No need to explain your vaccination status. One may offer if one chooses, i.e., I have a vulnerable family member, etc. Or if there is a perceived violation, there's no attack directly, it goes to a superior to address calmly and quietly. Again, this may not be your final list of COVID etiquette in the office. It's simply a straw dog to create this generation. So after posting this straw dog, people should feel free to discuss alterations and improvements of the plan. Ask questions. What's the purpose of the guideline? How should the group decide upon the agreement? Again, we don't want to put out a list of expectations and expect people to comply. We want them to agree to it. We want them to understand what's behind it. Now, remember, once the organization determines the guidelines, then employees really should be agreeing to follow them unless a momentary lapse occurs, and then readily adjust when reminded. Like all of us who have forgotten to remove our masks once in the privacy of our own car. You know you have. Admit it. Now, some of you may not agree with masks or vaccinations, but that's not the point. The point is for people to feel comfortable and know what to expect. What's most important is that no one attacks anyone regardless of behavior, so that all feel safe. This is the behavior that fosters trust and accountability, which is required for a high-performing team. Keep the dialogue open. Don't choose to be offended. Create a checkpoint for when your office will revisit these guidelines. Do you need a trusted partner who can facilitate your new office etiquette? I work with clients one-on-one, and I work with teams to facilitate a shared understanding and agreements. Reach out. I'm here. Just email me at Shawna@shawnacorden.com. So this brings us to the tool of the week, the straw dog, sometimes also referred to as a straw man. It's simply a collection of ideas and a framework for people to generate ideas. The point is not to make it perfect or as close to the end product as possible. It's not intended to be a prototype. It's just there to get ideas flowing by either shredding or improving the product. Just like brainstorming, where all ideas are heard and ideas build upon one another, the straw dog just gives you a starting place. So here's your field work. As we say each week, coaching without action isn't coaching, it's just entertainment. Begin straw dogs for several upcoming meetings to accelerate the time it takes to achieve your objective. Whether it's a list of COVID etiquette ideas for your office or your upcoming holiday celebration, begin with a framework that includes the elements you know are required, but don't be attached to the ideas you put forth. Be willing to update them for the better. The purpose is not to exit the meeting with as many ideas as you put forth surviving as possible, but to generate a rich dialogue with the best possible result. Now, each week in the podcast, I like to highlight a leader doing it well in the news or from a listener, and one that had a wobble. And if you'd like to nominate your organization, please email me at podcast@shawnacorden.com. My applause goes to those organizations who have encouraged a dialogue about what the new office etiquette can be and kept the dialogue open, promising to revisit guidelines as new developments naturally call for updates. These employers are keeping up and they're retaining their employees. My wobble goes to the organizations who have not updated their applicant process in this dearth of jobs that are out there needing employees. Innovative organizations have narrowed week-long applications and interview processes to just a few hours. There's just way too many openings to keep that kind of timeline and rigor. Do we want great employees? Yes. Are you lowering your standards? No. You're simply eliminating the bureaucracy that comes with too many checks. The balance will prove true that first week, and you're going to know if that new employee fits your culture. Take some risks to get the best talent before your competitor does. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, give us a rating, tell your friends. If you'd like to hear more about a topic that would make your work fun by improving the leaders in your organization, please drop us a line at podcast@shawnacorden.com. Until next week, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shawna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shawnacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shawna Corden.